We are honored to have Kim Ballard here, a former past president of Shape America and current professor at Campbell University. She will be speaking from personal experience as she gives an insightful presentation focusing on the impact of obesity as a disease in both children and teachers. We're all looking forward to hearing best practices and strategies that Kim's going to share to promote a healthier lifestyle for not just students and teachers, but also administration.
I just have to say right up front, and it's the first thing that I always say, is that I am not a doctor. I'm not a medical person at all. I don't have all the answers, and I'm just me. I've done some research that I'll share with you. A lot of mine is experience. And I just want to, let you also know that it is a little easier behind the screen than it was telling people in person. But it is very embarrassing and humbling. And I know people say, well, you shouldn't be, but it's not about that. It's about me. And it's about, my profession and how I feel about myself. So just keep that in mind as I try to roll through some of this and just thinking about sharing things with you. And really what it's about is obesity in general and how we address that and how we address it in school. And as you know, what we've been doing is not working. We've been advocating for more PE. That would have been great. We've been advocating for all kinds of things, more time, walkable sidewalks, walkable communities and everything. We haven't gotten anything. We're not getting anything done. And you know what? It might not matter. It might matter in the sense of helping kids that are overweight, because activity and nutrition are a very big part for that, for overweight. We can help kids there. And it is a part of obesity, but it is a smaller part of obesity than it is with being overweight. So I don't want to I'm trying not to let people think that I'm not saying that we don't do physical activity and nutrition, because we do. That's our profession. And I'm not talking bad about it. But we got to distinguish the difference between physical activity and nutrition versus how we treat obesity. And I've been talking about saying things this way a little bit different. So people say that, like Jane's obese. No, Jane's not. Kim's obese. No, Kim's not. Kim has obesity. Jane has obesity. It doesn't mean that's who I am. And that's how we live it most of the time, is we feel that obesity is who we are. And that is who we are. It's our persona, it's our self-image, and it's just who we are. And when you do it for so long, you ignore it. It's just sort of there. You don't even think about it anymore. Your friends don't think about it. They just love you as you are. But it's a chronic disease that's going unnoticed and untreated, and you know it. And the longer it goes, it's the harder it is for us to treat. And with kids, there's so much going on with them now, especially too. I think one of the things was about 93% of Americans are affected by obesity in some way or another. And then there's different ranks of obesity now. There's like 3 or 4 tiers of obesity. And it happens everywhere. Like our fat bias and our stigma and the way that we think about it, we see somebody and we judge. We can't help it. Our eyes are the first thing that makes us, have a thought about something. So what do we automatically think? And that's the hard part to change, but we have to. And it takes time to practice that. And it's just a slight mind twist, but it's like I tell our baseball players, your mind can only do one thing at a time. You can't be positive and negative at the same time. So we get ready to walk up into the batter's box, you got to either, say something positive or say something negative. And so when we're learning to meet people or that kind of thing, or looking at people, we've got to remember to tell ourselves something positive. And so it's not reaching for something negative, it's reaching for something positive, and we got to practice that. We just have to practice it. It shows up in the workplace for sure. There was data that I read that showed that women would get like 6% less pay for doing the same work, even from other women. And that the stigma itself stopped some people from going into higher education. A higher education would not select them, believe it or not. They were significant. Obese kids were significantly less likely to be accepted into a college or university, and those who were likely to receive less financial aid. And that's a citation that I got that I was going to share with you from there. That stunned me. I mean, it stunned me. And I dug in a little further, and I found a couple of articles about physical education teachers, because I wanted to look and see where that was. And surprisingly, to me, I guess, I found that our pre-service teachers that I teach have a bias. And it's not necessarily, you're fat, you're fatty. It's more about what I expect out of you. I can love you, I see you, but my expectation is not of you what I have of somebody else. And I'm not going to have that expectation for you. And I'm going to continue to give you lower expectations in everything. And so we have a disease that we do have to work with, but what does that entail? It doesn't mean our whole life, just like a diabetic child or just like someone with high blood pressure. What can they do and what can't they do? And you work around that. But it showed that teachers, that pre-service teachers, between their junior and senior year, there wasn't much difference between how they felt about that stigma, but there was an incline that was growing. So that when we get out into the world and we are teaching, another survey, guess what it shows, is that teachers were a little more biased than other classroom teachers. And so it was comparing to like math teachers, and I think one was a history teachers, psychology. I'm sorry, psychology teachers. And we were always high. Physical education teachers were higher in all the research that I found. Now, it wasn't always big, significant. And it wasn't always 1,000 people studies. These are small studies because there's not a lot out there on it that I can find yet, but it's there. It's there. And one of them was the PE and math. I'm gonna read this one to you. Teachers showed that they had similar bias, except for the automatic obesity laziness association, which was stronger for the PE teachers than any other teacher. That we see obesity and laziness as soon as we see it. We got to think about that in our profession. We got to think about, because that's what the kids see and feel. That's what I see and feel. That's what you think about me when I'm fat. And people don't expect much more out of you. And you just get used to that low feeling of not mattering so much. And I think that's what made me work harder in my professional life, because I felt so little in my personal life. And so these stereotypes really do hurt us. And we help as PE teachers bring out some of these stereotypes in class. And we don't mean to. I'm not saying that we don't mean to, but it happens. And we got to figure out what are the things that we do that we can to stop it. So one is that I was reading is you got to think about it in higher ed. We got to think about how we teach our pre-service kids about this, and that we not say that you are obese, you have obesity. It is a chronic disease. It is not your fault. It's not. We need to get you help just like anybody else. And that thought train has got to change. It's going to save lives. Just that little change of words. Because it takes it off of you, and you not trying, and you not being lazy, and you not being all those things that are with the stigma, to it's the disease. And now I'm more ready to go find help and get something to do something, because you're not saying it's just me all the time. And that's really important, because it's not about willpower. And I'll tell you just a little about me. And I had some pictures to show, but I'm kind of glad I don't have to now. But I was close to 300 pounds and a little more when I was at my highest. So I'm shaking, sorry. My body fat percent was right around 42. If you can imagine how much that was in a body, it's not far from 50%. I was doing fine. People, as many of you know, that I was just, I was happy. I was doing well. I'm doing good work. You would never know what was going on inside of me. And most of the time I didn't either. But the thing is I couldn't look myself in the mirror. I couldn't look at my face and my eyes. I could get dressed and do everything, but I could not look myself in the mirror. I had no respect for myself. I didn't like looking at pictures because of how fat I was. And it's my fault. And I'm in the profession and I'm letting people down. And it was when I get on the plane and walk down the aisle and people just kind of turn their head because they don't want you to sit next to them. And you see it and you know it, but there's nothing you can do. And you sit down and you got, you're next to the wall or you're in the aisle and you're sitting like this as tight as you can, and you back pain every day, every time. When I had all the back pain at conferences, y'all, I was sitting like this on the plane, trying to not touch anybody because they were so afraid of me touching them. And it's hard. And then having to ask for an extender, maybe just to get my seatbelt on. And I couldn't put my tray down because there wasn't enough room. And then when you laid down, it was definitely not enough room from the chair in front of me. So I just had to sit there in one position like this for a long time. If I needed to go to the bathroom, it didn't matter. They're too small. I mean, I could go, but it was very difficult in there. It was very difficult in the airports. They're not big enough hardly to turn around the stalls. They weren't meant for big people. They're meant to get a bunch of those, get a bunch in there. So those are things people don't think about. Like our communities are not made for people that have that chronic disease. And that's just the airport. So let's say we go out and eat, right? And we go in and the hostess says, well, where do y'all want to sit? A booth or a booth or table? Oh, let's go to the booth. That looks fun over there because it's got a little TV right by it. And everybody wants to go to the booth. I can't fit in the booth. I sit on the outside, or I may have to get a chair to pull up to be able to sit with the group. And that's embarrassing already. Or I have sat at the table in that booth shamefully, trying to be like everybody else. And it's almost dug into my gut. And I can't bend over to eat. I have to bring the plate to me, or I'm going to spill it all over me. And you won't say anything because it's too embarrassing, and it's probably why I did drink a lot. But I would be watching you watch me to see what I would order, or how much I would eat. And you probably never paid attention, but it didn't matter. It was in my head as to what we would do, as to what I would have or how much I would have. If I'd go to the doctor, I'd have something like, the tables weren't big enough. The gowns weren't big enough. Well, I'll need to get 2 of these for you. You know what? I know it's okay. You don't have to tell me everything all the time. I will tell you something good though. When I went for my last breast exam, they showed me the difference between my breast exam then and my breast exam now. And it was like, I couldn't believe the difference when you got all the fatty tissue away. You could see so much better. So, I mean, it was really good for me getting checked for breast cancer. I can tell you that now. And that was just something I wasn't even expecting. And then clothes. I mean, I would try to get in front of people. Sorry, I'm still shaking. I try to get in front of people and talk and do, conference talks and things and look nice. But I always had something hanging outside of my, pants, or I could never tuck something in. I didn't have anything that nice. But, not only was it I had to wear loose clothes, but they don't make pretty clothes in big people sizes. And so it's hard. It was just hard to be me. And it's hard not only to be me, but it's hard for every single person out there right now that's watching or that's hearing or is going to hear later, or that I'm trying to reach, that it's not your fault. That I have felt like it's my fault for so long. It's not your fault. It's just not. And we got to help, I think, as teachers, as physical educators, everything. Media is killing us with, what we need to look like. We're supersizing everything. We need to eat more, do this, and we're doing it. And kids are a lot more less active. And I know that kids, the transition is moving, like these kids are different than us. They learn different than me. I'm having to learn from them how to even teach them in higher ed. But we got to learn, and we got to learn how to work with them to do something for them. And we've got to listen to them. And, the best thing we can do is in class is just, ask them what they want to do. Ask them what they can do. Give them some choices. They're not going to be able to compete with the athlete. And we've been saying give kids choices forever. I did it 20 years ago. It was the best thing I ever did. But here we are 20 years later, and a few teachers are doing it out there. Some good teachers are doing it, and I'm so proud of you, probably more than I'm probably can imagine. But we need more. We need everybody. We need everybody doing that. Because when they have that choice, now I can go do something that I can be successful at, even with my big weight, and move. Instead of going over here and hiding in the corner or standing on the side or trying not to play or coming up with an excuse or trying to skip that day because I'm too big and I get made fun of in the gym or in the locker room or wherever it is. And I've seen kids several times. I've heard kids come up when I was at a camp that said that they were, that football had saved their life because they were getting bullied a lot by students because of how big their bodies were. And they played football. They were little league. They started playing football and they lost some weight. And now everybody wanted to be around him. And he was too young to see and know all the things that were really going on. He just knew that people didn't like him and people did like him because his body changed. That was it. And that kind of thing just, I don't know. It's like, what profession are we in if we're not in that profession? What good is physical education if we're not teaching our kids about their self-esteem? What good does it do to teach us to be active when we're not going to be active anyway? We don't appreciate ourselves. I mean, we're just teaching athletes to get better. We're teaching kids that have skills to get better. And that's good. I don't want to lock them off. I don't. I want to continue to push them, but I want to have a choice for other kids too. And I want us to understand why, not because they're lazy. And in the research I found, it was showing like that's one of the biases we have. And we don't mean it. I'm not trying to say we mean it and we're mean. I'm saying it's implicit. We just do it. It's just something that's been there for forever. It was because we did think that for so many years. We've thought it for a long, long time. And it's going to be hard to change that thought. I still do it now too. We all do it. We can't help it. But it takes time to practice it and make some changes. And so that's the biggest thing I think when I'm wanting to help others is to think about what they're going through. Think about I'm still obese. I still have obesity. And I will the rest of my life. So it is a disease, it's a chronic disease that I will have the rest of my life, that I'll have to take care of, that I'll be medicated with for the rest of my life, just like other chronic diseases. And that's why, I went to my doctor. I found an obesity medicine board certified specialist. And that's what you want. If you want help for yourself, or you want to look up how to start helping other people, find a board certified obesity medicine doctor. A lot of regular doctors aren't really sure about stuff right now. They're just not, and they weren't trained with it. But when you get a board certified obesity that specializes in this, you'll know. I walked in one day and it was my over 300-pound day. And I sat down and cried and said, I wanted to live. And I had tried everything. And she wasn't going to do it either, but I was going to try to give it one more thing. And I told her, I was dead against it. Like, you're not going to be able to help me. Why don't you just cut it off of me? Help me do something. And she said, I got you. It's okay. She didn't fuss. She didn't look at me like I was crazy. She never once said anything negative. She made all the difference in the world to me and my confidence. And she said, just give me some time. Give us some time. And she made me go talk to a psychiatrist and psychologist, which I did. And I had to find out what was going on. And some of those things going on was the nutrition I had, right? And we do have to teach about that. But what I found out was I had this addiction type thing that had started to occur from probably stress and low self-esteem. And that was hard. And it was like I couldn't help but eat certain foods. And that was hard. Sometimes I would eat before I would go with you to eat so that I wouldn't eat too much in front of you. And sometimes I would be going down the road and I would have cravings so hard, hungry or not, didn't matter, that I'd turn my head to try not to look at the sign to go. And going down the road a little bit and I'd see another one to try to turn my head. I tried and tried, and then finally I'd pull over and just eat until it was done. And I was full and I could drive on, and I was fine till I could get where I was going. And then I was fine as a person. And I see it as an addiction, like any other drug almost. It's what I can imagine it feels like, although I'm not comparing this to that. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like, I'm not saying I'm like an alcoholic kind of thing, because theirs is far worse, I'm sure. But that addiction, that pull that you can't do anything about it, and you know it, and you try and you fail, and you try and you fail, and you try and you fail. And something just runs your life. It runs it. And you just don't know, you just can't do anything. It's not that I don't try. It's not that I didn't try. You just can't do it. Well, in the psychiatrist and the psychologist that we were talking, and I saw a nutritionist, I had to see all of those. This was a team effort. It wasn't a magic pill. It wasn't a magic anything. It was a team effort, because she understood that obesity was a chronic disease, and that it was multiple faceted, not just, something easy. So all these things that are out there that, even, even all the weight loss ones that I've tried, they're not going to work. And I know now it's because of the way that our bodies are, that the way that, so much of it's in our genes, for one. But then once we get to a part in our body where we reach obesity, it's not going back. It's not going backwards. So we have to help it. Our bodies change chemically, and our bodies change with our insulin. Our body changes with everything just about. And so but it doesn't go backwards. Even those diets don't help it go backwards. Medication helps it go backwards. Exercise and diet helps us when we're there working, and it helps us in the process, but it's not going to reverse obesity. So I'm not trying to put down, exercise and diet. I'm not. We need it. I need it. Everybody needs it. But it's a team of people that came together for me 2 years ago now. And I'm 60. I feel 45. And if you Google on the internet, I was looking the other day to see just to be so recent, was my interview for running for candidate for president for Shape America, which is not that long ago, 3 years ago. And look at that picture, look at that video, and look at what's changed. But it's changed my whole life. I'm still embarrassed. I'm still me. I'm still that person. I'm still, I still have obesity. It doesn't look the same as some others right now, but I'll always have it. And I want to reach those people that are out there that are big and that do feel the same things that I feel, and not look at me and say, I can't do that, because you can. I didn't think so either. And you're not going to do it if you don't get with the right doctor that can give you the right kind of treatment. Everything don't work the same way for everybody, but it works when you have a team of people that come together and work what's best for you. So I have one medication that actually blocks that chemical in my brain that was making me crave so bad to go eat. And I will tell you that within a week, I never have craved like that again, ever. Something that I could not stop myself from has just stopped. And it was all because of chemicals in my brain. I couldn't do that. It was chemicals in our body. So it's not my fault. And I would have never known that. And now they're finding, even with some of the other weight loss drugs and stuff, that even that's helping knock off some of the cravings and stuff, and stopping some of the addictions they're finding. Like Wegovy has that in it as well. So I did use Wegovy. I've used the medication that helps me with my brain, which I went through a lot getting it. People say, well, don't it make you sick? I did. I went through a time to get through it, but I stayed with it and I got through it. It wasn't anything I couldn't handle. Being sick wasn't like you had the flu. It's like I went over there and threw up, and then I came back and I was fine. I did it while I was teaching class. I mean, I'll be right back. It's not like you're that kind of sick. I don't know. I guess I wanted it so bad. I just stuck through it. And At our state convention, I had Charlotte having to write notes for me because I was shaking so bad. At national conference, I had Stephanie on stage with me because I was shaking so bad. I couldn't write. I was stuttering. That stuff's going away little by little. I'm better and better because my body's adjusting so much. And my set point is resetting, which is nice. So the body continues to change, and it's still working. I'm still struggling, and I'll always struggle with the disease. And the medications, because sometimes you just have to change them up and change doses and all that. But my life has improved so much. And I mean, my life with me, I can look myself in the mirror and I'm proud. I still look away sometimes because I'm like, I don't know. I'm not there yet. I'm not. And I know people have come up to me several times and said, "You're so brave. You're so good for doing this. Thank you for stepping out." But you know what? It's not that. I mean, that's great, but I'm not that brave. I'm behind a screen right now. So it's easier. But what I am wanting to do is to reach out to us as teachers and beg us to really start looking at and thinking about what can we do in my class to make sure that those kids feel like they are part of the regular class and that they can do something and that they succeed, and it's not their fault where their weight is, and you're not pushing them to go harder and harder and harder because they're overweight. Push them harder because that's what they do, because that's what everybody needs to do, right? Push them to where they can go. Don't treat them, like they're fragile. You got to be careful, but yeah, just don't treat them different like that. They'll take advantage anyway. As a kid, they'll get out and do anything they can, and you'll let them because we don't know enough about it. I saw on TV. I was going to play it, but I'm glad I really don't now. And I know we're getting ready to wrap up, but I saw a little clip online. Actually, it was from Court TV where a man was sentenced to prison for killing his 6-year-old boy. And I was intrigued, and I looked at it, and because he said on a treadmill, and I was like, well, what in the world? And I looked at it, and he had been putting his son on the treadmill because he was fat. And then he would pick up the speed, and the boy would fall off, and he'd make him get back. And he ended up dying of trauma, blunt force trauma. He was fat, and his daddy made him get on a treadmill. That's where people are, y'all, with thinking about obesity. We're in a profession, many of us. We think the world's going a lot better than that because we're around each other. We surround ourselves with us. But outside of our bubble, the hundreds of thousands of people outside of us, it's different. And we got to get out there. We can't just keep our bubbles. We got to get out there and help them. And we can do that through our children. We can do that through our kids because they can carry it home. They can tell their mom, what they learned, and that obesity is not their fault, that it's a disease and they need to go to the doctor. They need to get it checked. Yeah, the parent might call you and think you're crazy, but you tell them what you know. Tell them what you know. And you make sure that you're not saying in class, in health class that, you are obese here. People that have obesity disease are at this body fat level. That's what we need to do. These are diseases we have. And so there's a lot of different medications. There's a lot of doctors out there now that can help you. And there's a website that I'm going to see if somebody might be able to type it in for me. I don't know if I can do it or not from where I'm at right now. Where's it at, Ballard? It's called, it's www. I'm sorry. It's https:// obesitymedicine.org. obesitymedicine.org, one word, .org. And there has a list of doctors that are board certified, and you can put in your state, you can put in where you're from, and it'll tell you where they are around you. And it's the same thing at medicare.gov to find providers like that accept Medicare as well. So they're there. It's there for us to help our kids. It's there for us to help ourselves. If you're here for yourself or your family member, there's help, and I'm living proof of it. And I just thank you for being here, and thank Sally for having me on, and thank y'all for listening and not me having to face you eye to eye yet. I will one day, I know, but it's Yeah, it's hard. I don't want to be known for my fat. I want to be known, you know, for me and my business and what we're doing, reaching out to people. This isn't brave. It's scary. I'm scared. But I think that it's going to make more of a difference to kids and more of a difference out there, but I can't do it. I got to have you. I got to have all of you and more, whatever the 20 some of us are, and then plus more. I got to have it, or it's not going to work. It's not going to matter how much I talk about. It's just going to be me getting out there and embarrassing myself and nothing happens. And that's the last thing I want. So you guys, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll take some questions if we have some, if we need to.
Kim, I gotta say, you don't think you're brave, but you after that, that's powerful.
I see a hand up.
It's Jenny.
Oh, hey.
Hi, you know how you spoke that you had all those feelings, you thought people were looking, or this lack of confidence. As someone who has seen you speak over the last couple of years and someone who inspired me to join some organizations, that never came through. That's absolutely remarkable. It lets you know how deep it runs in people who look like they're doing fine, even if they've got a bit of weight on them. We should be more sensitive and in tune. That's absolutely fine to me. Thank you very, very much for that incredible insight.
Yeah, thank you for seeing that, because you've got to, and thank you for making it not about me, that you got something from it, that you're going to pay attention to people and you think about what they're feeling and what they may be going through. And that's what they're going to need to, you don't need to talk to them about it necessarily, unless they want to talk, but just know we hurt them without meaning to. We do.
Well, I can say it's totally changed. It's changed my attitude. I can tell you that.
Good. Thank you, Joe. Good.
So, because I've known you for a long time as well. So
you've seen the change. I mean, you've seen me at my worst or biggest with the disease and on through. So,
yeah, I mean, I hate to kind of bring up heart rate at this point, but I mean, it is, you know, one of the things that we've heard from teacher after teacher saying using heart rate monitors, the kids they thought were working the hardest weren't working the hardest. And the kids they didn't think were working very hard were working the hardest. In most cases, that was the obese kids are really working a lot harder than the athletes. So, I mean, there is an advantage, you know, to using technology, but I kind of hate to bring that up, but because it is kind of the truth.
Well, it's good to use, especially with these kids we don't know. We can't see inside their bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a hand.
Kim, that was pretty incredible. Thank you so much for doing that, especially off the top of your head with a little technical difficulties. That was, I mean, I know how hard that can be, and what a touching story, and I think a great message.
Well, it's a little more powerful with some other things, but it's all right, you know. Hey, Diana.
Sorry about that. So I have to tell you something interesting. So I've lost 120 pounds, and I did it. Thank you. And I did it in a different way, because my entire life I was overweight and I never got anywhere, and I always thought it was about the food. So, and this is kind of corny, but this is how I met Sally. I actually decided if I exercise first and then deal with the food later,
Yeah,
that gave me my self-confidence.
mm-hmm.
The exercising.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to look at both things. I mean, there's this whole big psychological thing that went on for me anyway with my obesity. Yeah. And I think kids go through that all the time. But for me, exercise clicked first because of my self-confidence being so much improved with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's
don't
all
doubt
important.
that at all. I don't doubt it at all. And I'm very proud of you. Thank you for stepping up to do something, because it's hard. I know how hard it is. And to keep it off is even more. And yes, there's a time though when obesity gets up to the pounds, you know, that is hard, where you did really well, but a lot of us can't do that. Most of us can't do that, but it's all about who we are and our genes and our environments. And there's so many factors that go into, there's like over 400 gene gatherings that can happen that, you know, that can help us, you know, either lose the weight or not. And no one or two people are going to do the same thing. The the way you do it is not going to be the same. And that's why you have to do the trial and error for a little while. So when people ask me like, what diet did you do? I said, I didn't. I have a disease. I have chronic disease.
Good.
I have obesity, because I don't want them to think that those shots are what works, or you just took a pill that what worked, or that I'm doing Atkins again and that's what worked, because that's not going to work. And one of those things off is not going to work. So I think that getting the real understanding about the chronic disease part and treating it as chronic disease is the key.
We all have a couple more hands. Gail.
So Kim, you and I have written back and forth a little bit too, and I am in the exact same boat. And not a lot of people, like I see Becky's in here who knows me really well. Becky doesn't even know this about me, and I know her very well. I'm 55 years old. I'm a year away from retiring, and I've tried everything. And it wasn't until I went to an obesity specialist 2 years ago, probably around the same time as you did, that finally taking blood and figuring out like what is wrong with me. Like I would exercise like crazy and I would lose all this weight, but my nutrition would never click. And then I would do stuff with nutrition, and then my exercising wasn't clicking. I didn't have enough energy to do things. And
Exactly.
and it's so I told you this, I have felt so long. I mean, you're a PE teacher. I was a cross country runner, a cheerleader, a track runner in high school.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell happened?
College athlete. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my entire grown up life, I have fought my own body trying to figure this out. And it wasn't until 2 years ago, literally, where my doctor said, I think you need to see an obesity specialist. And I was like, it was like a punch in the gut. It was embarrassing. I went to the doctor and I was terrified. I was like, she is going to think I am like out of my mind. Like, what is wrong with you? Just stop eating so much. Stop thinking about food so much. I was so nervous going in there. And now I have such a good relationship with her and seeing the nutritionist, and it makes me feel like I'm not out there, but there's something still in my head for being an overweight PE teacher that I'm an imposter. Like, how can I tell these kids this is a great place to work out and you're going to be so healthy and this is awesome? And they look at me and they're like, how is that possible? Like, you're saying these things, but look at you. And that is still, even though I've lost now and been able to keep off 80 pounds now, that is in the back of my head all the time.
Well, you've had it there how many years? It's not going to go away. You know, we've got to retrain our own brains. Mine's there too. I mean, it's like the kids probably weren't even thinking that. That's ourselves and our self-confidence continuing to beating ourselves down, because that's what we see. That's what we feel. You know, that's what we hear from society. So
the one thing you said that was really, really good is, hold on, I'm a note taker. I'm known for taking notes in my little group. You said to make sure you have expectations for students who have obesity. Still have those expectations. And I find myself guilty of that too, because I don't want to draw attention to them. I mean, God forbid that. I had a girl came up today and she's like, I don't even know how to play this game. I wasn't paying attention to you. All I remember is you saying that we had to do this by ourselves. And I shut my mind. And I was like, it's okay. I'll explain it again. And I thought nothing of it. But now that you're saying this, I'm like, God, that's probably how she felt in my class. Like, we just don't know what we're saying or what we're doing is really, we have to be careful with kids. We have to be really careful. So thank you so much for that. That's something I'll be taking out of this.
Welcome.
Another question from Artie.
Hey, Artie, thanks for being here.
Oh, Kim, I wouldn't miss it. I would not miss it. I was wondering, Joe, if this would be available as a recording later for other people to see.
Yes, it will.
How would we go about getting that?
Yeah, Will, we recorded it.
Posted on our website, Heartstone's website, and it'll also be sent out to all of the people who attended the webinar.
Yeah.
And we'll get that presentation file too, and we'll send that out with this so you can see what Kim put together.
That's gonna be scary. But it's
Tom,
needed.
that's a question.
It's needed, but it's gonna be scary.
I miss seeing you and Artie. It's been too long.
Hey, Tom.
Kim, you know, I've known you a long time, and
Yeah.
100 years from now, Kim Ballard will be remembered in the history books for the impact you've had on physical education.
Well,
And I speak for thousands of people who have been influenced by you over the years. So that is something all of us respect.
well, I learned from some of the best.
Well, we learned from you, so it's the best, learning from the best.
We all learn from each other. Yeah. Anything else I can help with, or if you have a question about it, you're not going to hurt my feelings at this point.
I had one more question. Did you do do they do a DNA test? Another certain? No, not at all.
They didn't for me. We just worked some different, angles, and they worked. So we didn't necessarily need to. I think that if nothing was working and we continually went through, they would probably find the right thing. And I don't know even then if they do DNA testing as much as they know what medicines work with what kinds of things. They would try it that way. But DNA can be as little as 20% to do with it, up to 80% to do with your weight. So with obesity, it just depends on those genes in between, so that's why I say we're all so different. You're more likely if both parents are obese, of course, a little bit less likely if they're not, or if one of them's not. And then of course, if neither, you're down on that 20% line. So it just depends. And it's just kind of like smoking, and what you eat when you're pregnant is important. What you smoke when you're pregnant is important. So it's all the same thing that we have to just, think about, and put it in that category of knowing it's not my fault. I think that's the biggest thing. Like Gail, it's like nothing can come off my shoulders any lighter or any heavier than just come off my shoulders and say it's not my fault. And I'm still struggling with that. It'll take a long time, but I'm still struggling. If I were some of y'all, I would look up and, go to Google search and look and see what kind of biases we have, that we're pulling up. It's kind of interesting. There's not many, but I'll send you a link to some, Joe, if you want me to, as well, that we can post somewhere, to some of the research that I pulled up, because it was really interesting to me to think, you just don't think it. But,
yeah, please do.
Well, thank you again, Kim, and thank you everyone for being vulnerable and asking questions.
Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you, everyone.